Welcome to the Choose on Purpose podcast. I'm Becky Ploutz, and today I am shoulder to shoulder with Michelle Von Ruden. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy that you're here in person in the studio today. Michelle, I want to give you a minute to introduce yourself a little bit, but I actually have something I want to just like give everyone a little bit of knowledge about who you are as well before you share more. So I may be sharing stuff you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's me. Because it talks a lot about the dynamic woman that Michelle is and her role with leadership. And um, so Michelle is, I would call her an expert in leadership. And she is a John Maxwell certified coach.
Yes.
She is a speaker. I've actually recently got to experience Michelle in a room with upwards of 400 women to share her story of resilience and just reclaiming her power and the empowerment behind all of that. So she is definitely all about helping you switch or turn your light back on by flipping the switch. Is that what it is, right?
Yeah, it's light switch moment. So you turn it
Light
back
switch.
on after someone or something turns your light off.
Yes. So, like that bounce back is what I think of. So, reclaiming your light, rising through the challenges in your life, and leading with purpose from the inside out. So, Michelle has 15 plus years of experience in operations, HR, accounting, and finance. And you have an MBA in management and leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. So, right. She's good. She's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And she just brings a wealth of wisdom to any space that she shows up in. So, Michelle is here in the studio today to share more about her story, who she is, and more of her wisdom. So, Michelle, what else do you want to say about yourself other than all of these amazing credentials and highlights about your experience because you are a wealth of knowledge?
Yeah, and thank you. And that's everything that I do, but it's not who I am.
Yes.
Right? I think a lot of times women confuse what they do with who they are, and that gets tricky. And so, but I really am an outdoorsy, adventurous person. I have two amazing kids, a dog, and my husband and I have been married for 17 years, which
Woo.
is a long time in this day and age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we really just try to spend that quality family time. We're still one of those people that at night, if we can, we're eating dinner together, whether that's from the local fast food joint, a restaurant, or just sitting around our table. We really try to keep that, instill that together. So really a family woman at the heart of everything.
I love that. I'm with you on that. That especially when you have a teenager, like I know that gets harder. I guarantee it gets harder and harder with what they're all doing. So
Yes.
the fact that that is a value that you continue to bring that back in your house, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Dinner is an important part of our dynamic in my house as well. So
Yeah. And our oldest is 14, and then our youngest is 6.
yeah,
So
that
two
bonding time
children.
is important,
We
you
raised
know?
two only children in the same house. So whenever we can get them together and have those special moments, we like to have that.
Yeah. So today's really about celebrating all of Michelle, who she is, a leader, a coach, a woman, and the light that you carry. So that's what I'm here to help facilitate today for you. And I want to begin talking more about your why. And you said something beautiful that in your application that I want to help that you want to help others turn their light switch back on, which we mentioned.
Mhm.
And so I want you to dive into that. I want to start with this. And what does that mean to you? And why did this mission begin?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So turning your light switch back on. I think we can all relate. We all have a story. We all have something we can share. But at some point in time, our lives were going amazing. And then something happened. At the flip of a switch, someone or something came along and turned off your light switch, right? For me, I've had many trials and tribulations, even over the last few years. And one in particular that I'll talk about today was a car accident. My son and I were coming home from his 12-year-old checkup on my 39th birthday when a distracted driver hit us.
Mm.
They were doing 60, we were doing 60. I spent 2 years recovering fully from that car accident. So my light switch got turned off in the flip of a switch, right? And that's why I call them light switch moments. And what we need to do is we need to realize that it's not as simple as turning the switch back on.
Hmm.
It's not that easy, right? Because when you go through these traumatic or serious events, you never come back the same person that you were before it happens,
Yeah.
right? And so we need to understand that we can't just bounce back. We have to grieve the person that we were. And I think this is critical. People miss this. When you go through something like this, you have to grieve the person that you once were because that person is gone. You'll never be the same,
Mm.
right? When something this serious, whether it's PTSD or just anxiety over things like that, you're never that same person. And so we have to grieve that person before we can start moving forward. And we don't just move forward, right? We don't bounce back.
Mm.
We elevate ourselves. Hmm.
Yeah, so what I love about this is the understanding that it's not necessarily easy.
Oh, it's not easy.
Flick of a switch, Michelle. That sounds
Right.
so easy. And I love that, your experience is an example for yourself to say, like, I went through this, I've experienced this, I know the challenge of getting literally lights out, probably,
Hmm.
in a
Yep.
situation to say, this changed me. And, from this point, and I heard something this weekend actually that was talking about before and after moments. And of course, I'm a photographer, so I can relate to like before and afters. But really, in any traumatic event, situation, and thinking about a lights on, lights off kind of moment, it's like the before and after of who you were before this event occurred
Hmm.
to now after the event has occurred and the challenges and changes that come with that experience.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on, right? So you can't just bounce, you can't just flip it back on, right? So it's really easy to turn it off. But then I think of it as in terms of a dimmer switch, right? You're slowly turning that light back on, slowly getting that light back into the room, right? Same concept because you're going to go through a process and you're going to come back better and stronger. There is strength in all the struggles that we go through. And I'm a firm believer that things happen not to you, but for you. And how do you move that forward? How do you take the good of what you had before, reinvent it, and come back stronger?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a learning experience, and being able to train ourselves to know that I can come back from these situations, that it's not always going to be, I'm just going to say dark, right?
Yep.
Thinking about that light switch, those dark moments, when we're in them, a lot of the times I'll speak for myself when I've been in those moments, it's like, will I get out of it?
Hmm.
Will I see, a brighter day, so to say? And I love that you're like looking to spread the understanding that you've definitely had challenges in your life
Hmm.
that have had this experience for you to be able to share with others and give them support in doing that for themselves.
Yeah.
So is okay, because you're a speaker, is this one of the topics that you're bringing to stages and that you're talking about, or is this more of like a program? Like, what do you see for this specific avenue?
Yeah, and so you heard it, right? So the Becky was in the room when I talked about strength and the struggles, your path to resilience. And I tell a different story in there. I do mention briefly the car accident, but I tell a different story, but the process is the same,
Hmm.
right? And it can be something like the car accident, it could be something like a surgery you didn't know you were going to have. There's always something to learn from things as you move forward. And so, yeah, my goal is to really spread the message because there is so much strength in our power and we don't realize that we're in the moment. And that's not to say that everything's going to be all happy go lucky. No, you're going to have struggles, you're going to have challenges as you go through that. I remember, so the car accident was in December, and I think it took me until May, and it was after I had to have 3 surgeries with this car accident. It was after my foot surgery. And it was just really hard not being independent for so long,
Mm.
right? And so because of that, I finally ended up going to see a mental health counselor, and I was like, I am positive through this whole thing. But I was like, can I just be angry for like a minute? Can I just
Yeah.
be upset about the whole situation? Right? Because I didn't ask for it, right? Something happened to me and I just need to let it out. And I think it took 2 sessions and I was okay, back to Michelle.
Mm.
because I have a really strong process, especially for things that are little that may upset your day or may get in the way. 24 hours. Let it soak in, be angry, be upset. 24 hours is all you get. Because if you can't control it, you can't fix it.
Mm.
So if you're spending more than that 24 hours, what are you really doing to yourself, to your mindset, right? None of that's helping. And I remember even through all the injuries, I ended up having 3 surgeries out of that car accident.
Wow.
And the doctors, the whole time, they're like, you're recovering so much faster than we thought because of your attitude, because I was positive, because I knew this wasn't my first rodeo in a traumatic event, that there was light at the end of the tunnel, that I could come out of it stronger. And so I knew that going into it. But yeah, I mean, people think, oh, well, you're never going to be mad about stuff. And I said, well, no, that's not it. That's not what we're going for. We can have all those emotions, right? I mentioned the 5 stages of grief. You go through them, you grow through them. So you're allowed to have all those moments, but you don't want to linger too long. Because when you linger too long, that's really when you fall to the quote unquote dark side.
Well, and that's where stagnation is.
Yes.
And Michelle and I really relate on talking about growth in a way that literally it's like the growth is about growing and planting those seeds and like the real side of like growing. We both relate on this
Hmm.
verbiage very much. So, right, thinking about the stagnation that happens in our life if and when we may not allow those stages to occur. Like I'll literally share that I did something today that I had heard something that inspired me this morning on my drive back from taking my boys to school that was like, um, this is a great time in this reflection towards the end of a year to say, what is holding you back? Find something in your house that's a representation of a relationship or something that didn't go right or right the way that we planned or whatever, that we know is holding us back in some way.
Hmm.
And I like instantly knew something that I needed to get rid of and remove, as like this representation of this
Yeah.
thing that was stopping my own personal growth.
Hmm.
And the video talked about, you know, we could break it or we can just get rid of it or donate it to someone, like just literally clearing it from your life. So this morning I did that. I broke it, and then I got rid of it. So the stages of
And how did
that.
you feel?
Yeah, great. And the intention setting that this inspiration was kind of putting me through, which is really about the mindset of it, to recognize like I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm holding myself back because I'm having this story continue to play about the
Hmm.
impact that this made in my life.
Hmm.
And it's went way too long.
Yeah.
And I got to this point where I was grieving it. And then I was like, I'm ready to literally break this tie and break through that. So I did that this morning. Like after years of this thing, that I just was like, okay, so it's exactly what you're saying. We have to take the time to feel the feelings.
Feel the feelings.
So you taking like 2 sessions to like really be pissed off about like, yeah. I think a lot of times like, oh, I'm so angry and like, but really feeling the
Hmm.
feeling to really let it out so that we can make space for the growth
Hmm.
and the light to
Yes.
come in is like what I picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love the light switch, one because it sounds like it feels easy, and we all want it. We all do want an easy button, and it's work, and it can be a quick process if we're ready and allow the
Right.
process to occur in whatever that might be in our life.
Yeah, and depending on what flipped the switch off, it can be easy back on, right? It's still going to take work.
Hmm.
Mine took 2 years. It was a whole recovery process, right?
Yeah, it
But
wasn't just the
it
one
was
angry session, like you said. Yeah.
right because yeah, there are surgeries and all the therapies and everything, but it can also be a short thing, right? So, for instance, I had my appendix removed just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just like that. One day I'm sitting at a Rotary meeting, and the next thing I know, I'm going to go to the ER that night. And then they're talking surgery. And I feel that you can always get something. And here's what I want to share. I was at an event with a friend who was helping me since I was still in recovery mode. And she goes, okay, so you talk about these light switch moments. You talk about how you always learn something from them. And she goes, But with this, she goes, did you really learn anything? She's like, it was such a quick event. And my initial answer was no.
Mm.
But then I stopped for 1 second, just 1 second. I was like, oh, wait, yes, I did. And I said, I learned that if I didn't ask my friends to help me when I'm in my time of need, I am doing them a disservice.
Mm.
Because we like to help people. We're both coaches. We love helping people.
Yeah.
Our friends do too, right? And this is the first time
True.
I've had an event happen where I was like, hey, I need help. I need these things covered for me in the next week. Anybody. And my
Mhm.
friends showed up in spades.
Mm.
And so I learned in that moment that yes, it's okay to ask for help. Yes, people do care. And yes, people want to show up for you. And that was probably the first time because when I had the car accident, I didn't ask anybody for help.
Right.
Nobody knew. I would run into people like, oh, what happened to you? I was like, oh, I was in a car accident 4 or 5 months ago. Oh, I didn't know that. My immediate family knew. But yeah, ask for help. People want to help. They want to feel wanted. Just
Mhm.
like we do as coaches, we want to help people. We want to help them move forward. And your friends do too.
Yeah. The courage to ask is a huge part of, I think, every single person's journey in some way, shape, or form. And when we're vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
when we're in a time of actual need, not just, oh, it'd be nice if someone would come to this event with me. It's not a nice to kind of thing. It's a need to.
Right.
It's a real vulnerability for people to ask for what they need versus what they just want.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't just want someone to be there. You needed someone to be
Yes.
there. And they showed up. And they only showed up because you asked.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure people did.
It's the power of the ask.
I'm sure people did show up for you with the car accident, but again, it was more of your immediate family, the
Mm-hmm.
ones that, were let in on what was happening in your
Right.
life. But we do have bigger circles than I think we let on a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times to support us that they don't get the opportunity to really lend a hand
Yes.
if we don't verbalize that and ask for what we need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and I think that's a huge part of leadership. And you've had an incredible year, 15 years or more, right? A leader
Mm-hmm.
in your space and leading people in different various ways. So stepping, more boldly into becoming a certified leadership coach and, a trainer. How has your leadership journey shaped your destiny to be seen, to be heard, and to really be known for the impact that you're making with your stories?
Yeah, and I would say, good question. My leadership journey actually didn't even start. It started when I was in middle school. I grew up in a military family, so I guess you could say it started from birth, right? But that's a different type of leadership. Um, but where I went to school, we actually had like a few day long or a week long leadership conferences where they would send kids to.
Oh,
Right? So instead of like future business leaders of America, it's like future leaders of America. And
wow.
they would send us to these conferences. And so I was always cherry picked to go to these things. And
Hmm.
my love for leading and coaching and helping people just continued to grow. I've always been very servant leadership minded. I tried to join the military more than once on many occasion and was always denied.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Um, I tried right after high school. I tried after 9/11. And I still just being born with a heart condition at birth really
Mhm.
doesn't really help your chances. But I thought after 9/11 maybe, but
Maybe they take.
maybe they take me. But
Aw.
no, but I was just called to serve in a different way. And I wasn't listening and I wasn't paying attention to what that looked like
Mhm.
until I started, right? Until 2022.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I didn't know about the leadership, at the age like what did you call them? What are they, like workshops or like,
Yeah, there were
yeah,
conferences, full-on
conferences?
conferences for kids, and I went to many of them. In fact, as a freshman, I went to Model United Nations in The Hague. I lived in
Huh,
Germany at the time, but I was the representative for Equatorial Guinea.
that's cool.
So that was when I learned I didn't want to be in politics.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. I mean, what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So was that like for the military families specifically, or?
So Model United Nations, what I thought originally did think that, but I found out it is even in the US. So
Oh,
there were kids that were flown over from the US to The Hague to attend this as well.
oh, wow. That's a cool
Multiple
opportunity.
countries, multiple people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what does visibility mean for a leader who has spent your life, in those development rooms, you know?
So visibility is a hard thing for me.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to that, I lived in Germany for 11 years and we were always taught to blend in with your environment. You don't want to
Mm,
stand out. We're on a foreign country. Yes, they
yeah.
welcome us, right? But we need to blend
Conform a
in.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I started this business journey, it was a lot harder for me to step out. I have no problem stepping on a stage, but when it comes time to step out in other ways, it was very hard for me to overcome that visibility. And it wasn't even until I realized why.
Hmm.
When you have 20 years of training of blend in, don't stand out, blend in, don't stand out, it's really hard to reverse that. And so I've worked really hard to overcome that. I think for me, it's easier to be seen on stage than it is
Hmm.
in any other platform, including this. Social media is probably the hardest one for me. But what I tell my clients and what I tell other people is listen, you can't help the people you want to help if they don't know that you exist.
Right.
And so when I try to clam up and I try to go back into my shell and hide, I realize that that's not going to help anybody.
Hmm.
I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of things, a lot of experience, and people can relate to it and they can at least relate to the light switch moments and the things that I've been through in various ways. And I can't help them move past that if they don't know I exist. And I'm
Yeah.
not here to be like their counselor. I'm here to guide them in terms of like life and business and move them forward. Because there is a big line and there is a big difference between counselors and coaches, right?
Hmm.
But
A lot of my coaching clients have counselors
yes,
and they pair me with them. I'm like, that's a great duo right there. Like
yes.
just pair me with your therapy.
Yep, there we go. Exactly.
Well, I think that's so true. And so you know, I want to figure out like, is that part of like the John Maxwell training that you've done? Like, so what called you into that next level of leadership?
Oh, you want the big story. So throughout my career, I was at different various industries. And what I had noticed was that it didn't matter what industry I was in. People that were quote unquote leaders weren't actually leaders, they were managers.
Hmm.
And they weren't leading. In fact, I had one particular boss that I can think of who liked to use the word manipulation. And she was at the head of the organization I worked for. And to me, that doesn't sit right.
Like she
And
would use the word manipulate, like to
yes,
encourage you to manipulate people.
yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't sit well with
Yeah.
me. And
Out of
I
values.
called that, yeah, we were not in alignment at that point. And I called them on it. And eventually it got to a point where, I knew my boss, I didn't like, trust, or respect them. And so they didn't know some things about me. They didn't know about the heart condition. They didn't know that at one point I was sitting at home with my family and I went into AFib. They didn't know I was wearing a heart monitor, then that I had to wear it for 30 days. And so the time came for a trip that I was supposed to be going on for the organization to be a fly on the wall. And I said, I really don't feel that great. I'm going to stay back. I'm going to work remotely and we're going to have this conversation and we're going to work here. And they were totally okay with it. They said, oh, that's fine. No problem. We're good to go. Well, the following week, it ended up not being okay and not good to go. We had a conversation. Well, I tried to have a conversation. I was basically being yelled at for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I remember during that phone call, I really felt like my blood was boiling. I was so angry. I was so mad. My boss was yelling. I couldn't say a word. And I finally hung up. And I just remember being so angry. But again, remember I said I had a heart condition when I was born. I had a heart monitor on. About 15 minutes after I hang up on my boss, I get a call and it was my cardiologist. And he was just as loud as my boss, but in a totally different way. He's like, oh my God, Michelle, are you okay? Are you bleeding? Are you hurt? How long were you unconscious for? Do you need an ambulance? What can I do for you? How can I help?
Wow.
Not questions you want from your cardiologist.
No.
It turns out during the phone call, I went into an arrhythmia called ventricular tachycardia, which is a big, scary word for an arrhythmia that has the ability to kill you within 3 to 5 beats. It causes sudden cardiac arrest. And I go on to find out that during this time, on the phone call, I actually went into VTAC, as they call it, for 41 beats. And that was a pivotal moment. We ended up finding out that it was not, in fact, my heart that was going bad. It was the phone call. And I knew that at the time that it was the phone call that caused all the problems because just a few weeks later was the car accident I told you about. It didn't
Mhm.
act up then. But because of that car accident, they couldn't actually test my heart until April to see if it was my heart
Oh.
or if it was the phone call. So in April, they did find out that it was, in fact, the phone call because they couldn't recreate the same amount of stress.
Literally, our body keeps the score and is like telling us things all
Yes.
the time.
Yes.
That's what
And
amazes me. Mm.
even before we got the results from the doctors, I knew what the situation was, but I also knew that like I was in a position where I couldn't leave. I couldn't
Yeah.
venture out. I couldn't start my company. I had registered my company like a week before that, but I wasn't really sure the path I was going to take. But that was the night that I contacted John Maxwell's team,
Mm.
right? Because I couldn't leave. I was stuck. I had bought the house I was living in off a prior job, right? So then I
Mm.
went to nonprofit, so I was already like trying to make ends meet. We were there, but I mean, there was a line, right? It was pretty tight.
Yeah.
And so I knew I couldn't leave. So I had to create boundaries.
And safety
And
somewhere. Safety
yes,
somewhere comes to mind. Like, oh my gosh, woman, you needed
yes,
safety somewhere. And then
yeah,
what you could control is like how you were going to work.
right. And that's exactly what I did. So I started thinking about, okay, I have to stay here. I can't leave.
Not yet. Make a path.
What do I do? Right.
Yeah.
How do I move myself forward?
Yeah.
Right. Because this is another thing. So how do I, okay, my light
Instead of
switch is
staying
off.
stuck.
How do I move forward? Right. So
Yeah.
it's about growth.
Yes.
It always comes down to growth. We can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so I created boundaries. I said, okay, well, you know what? I work from home half the time anyway. If I see on her calendar that she's going in, I'm not going in. And I didn't. Right. The phone, these things, we hold them to a high standard. They are in our hands all the time. But here's the thing. You don't have to answer it.
That's right.
And I didn't. I made the choice that if the office or her number came up, I would not answer the phone. I would wait till I got a voicemail or an email describing what they needed, test the mood, see what they're in before I responded. Because I had to protect me. At
Hmm.
that point, I was still working for the company, but I had to protect myself. And I did that by setting those boundaries, right? Don't go in when she's there. Don't pick up the phone if she calls. What are the things that I can do to help protect myself? And that's what I help with my clients too, is I help them understand, okay, so there's some obstacles, right? That was a big obstacle. I still had to go to this job. I still had to do it, but I still had to do it in a way that was safe.
Hmm.
And so we really get into how do we do that and how do we start moving forward. And so during this time, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to join the John Maxwell team. I can't leave now, but that doesn't mean I can't leave in 6 months.
Right.
How do I move that process forward? And that's what I continue to do.
Yeah,
Mhm.
little by little, right? Like again, feeling the
Mhm.
anger, leaning into those emotions and doing that self work
Mhm.
so that you could take your professional self out of the situation that was totally toxic.
Yes. Toxic is not good for you.
Totally
Not good for you.
toxic. And I love that we talk about boundaries and like the importance of knowing that we don't have to answer for. I was just sharing with Michelle before we started recording too about my weekends that I've been really holding sacred to when I'm off at a retreat or I'm off doing something that's for me or for my client that I'm in person with because I was doing photography for a retreat this weekend and Michelle was contacting me to confirm all of this and I have my phone on airplane mode so much recently just because it's so easy for me to want to check out the notification that came across my phone. So, me setting a boundary for myself to know, like, not that people are distracting me, but I'm allowing notifications in general to like
Mhm.
derail where I'm wanting to be present, which is one of my values that I've actively like stay focused on. So boundaries is a great point of
Mhm.
how when we're working towards growth, like what do you need in order to grow? From where you can see like you're in the dark, maybe you've been planted there.
Yes.
But what's the path forward that's going to bring some light back into your life?
Mhm.
And if it's not the switch is getting turned on today, how is it going to happen?
Right.
That's what I hear in your stories. It's like we don't always know the path. And it's about taking these little steps to just start figuring out an approach. An approach, not the right one, but like an approach.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's just exactly right. And I just want to comment, before we started this, our phones went down, my watch even came off because that little notification, even if it's on theater mode or whatever, it still pings and it is a distracting. But we have to figure out, as you were talking about growth and what that path is, and I created a whole framework around it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so it's called Let's Grow, and I use that because I didn't realize when I was going through all these situations, not even those two, I'm talking back in the early 2010s, I was creating this framework and not even realizing it until I sat down and had the time to be creative and think about it. But really, it's listening to him and leveraging your strengths, embracing change and challenges, which is probably the hardest.
Mm.
Embracing change, right? Does everyone else like,
I love change. No.
right? Yeah, yes, change, right? No, that's not what we say. We're like,
When it's chosen change,
right,
when
right,
it's chosen change, not like, oh, I had an accident and now I have to figure it out. It wasn't something I chose.
right, right. And then you take aligned action consistently,
Yep.
seek support and community, gain an understanding of your vision and values, right? We already talked about how our values weren't
Hmm.
aligned with my past boss.
Hmm.
Um, reflect, reflect, and then
Yeah.
recalibrate.
Yep.
Optimize your time and energy, and walk with integrity and authenticity. And every time I've come to a point in my life where I felt like either someone turned the light switch off or I was like going at 10,000 miles and all of a sudden I'm like brakes, I use that to help grow myself. And I walk my clients through it too. Because it's so powerful when you sit down to start thinking about how do you create a plan? How do you move forward? And without that, what are you doing?
And that's a book inside you, right?
It is. It is a book inside me, yes.
We're pulling those roots out and getting to that because the framework is always, I love that that's been in the works.
Hmm.
And right, like anyone that's listening is like, oh, I have a book inside me too. Like this is not just an idea, like she's been living this framework. Not just that it was an idea once, it's something that you've been living for, I mean, currently like 15 years, like this process of like drawing out to really see like how the heck are you supporting yourself in all of these really monumental shifts and
Hmm.
changes in your life as they're occurring, not to mention being a mom, being a wife, and leading ourselves in those roles in our lives as well,
Hmm.
you know?
Well, the nice thing about the framework is, with any framework that you have, you can start it over.
Yeah.
Because every time you start back at L, listen to him and leverage your strengths, you're different from the person you were when you started it the first time. Because as you grow, you
Mm-hmm.
continue to evolve and you come back and you look at it differently every single time.
Yeah, in that cycle, right? It gets to
Hmm.
expand in whatever situation is happening in your life. And I love that I love acronyms as well. You guys know that. Like, if you've been following this podcast, every month there is an acronym on here that we talk about. And I've actually been a recipient of using Michelle's framework inside of her beta program,
Hmm.
which was called Let's Grow. And it was amazing. She gave structure and direction and support in a way that I do for my clients, only I got to go and receive it.
Yes.
So I'm super grateful for that. And so I'll just put a plug right here. So, Michelle, are you running anything like that right now, or where could they learn more about Let's Grow?
Yes. So it's actually now I'm rebranding the whole thing because I have a growth
Okay.
lounge, which is the membership.
Yes.
Then we have the growth lab, which is the membership plus the framework. And then we have the VIP growth experience. And then there's always one-on-one coaching. So I'll make sure that you have the links and that way they know where to go.
Okay, perfect. So look for that if you're like, okay, this is awesome. I have challenges like this all the time, and Michelle would be really great to help me with that. We'll make sure that that's linked below for you to have easy
Get on a
access to
call.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I wanna talk about navigating setbacks, which is really what we've been talking about. But
Mhm.
as someone who has led teams, you mentor others, and now is coaching leaders, what have setbacks really taught you about yourself?
Yeah, we all have setbacks, right?
Yep.
If we could all just be like, oh no, we pressed go and like the world was great, Yes, right? That'd be awesome. But that's not the reality. That's not the reality for me. That's not the reality for you. We all
Yeah.
have setbacks. And what is important, and probably the most important thing, is how you respond to those setbacks,
Hmm.
right? So there's many different ways that we could look at this. So, but if you have a setback, are you coming back and are you learning from it? Because if you're not learning from it, what's going to stop you from going down that same path again? Right? And then when I said reflect, 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 there's a reason for it. So I highly encourage everyone to stop and think about, what are they doing? Why did that happen? What parameters led to that setback? Right? I was just listening to a book called Originals by Adam Grant, and he was giving an example of a lady that was in the CIA who wanted to create a intranet so that way they could exchange information faster
Hmm.
within the CIA and all the different security alphabet letters, right, for the government.
Hmm.
And when she first originally tried it, she couldn't get it passed. She couldn't get anywhere with it.
Hmm.
And it actually started to derail her career. And what happened was she took a different job, still within the CIA, but then she ended up navigating into where she got to a position of power where she had credit with the people that she was around,
Mm.
right? I call it change in your pocket, right? Because
Yeah,
people know, like, trust, respect you.
true.
And then she was able to, and then she had some guys that wanted to create this thing come to her, and she's like, yes, this is what I've been working for. And now they have it. But for her, she could have easily escaped. She could have left and gone somewhere else. She could have just, shut up and did what she wanted to do, and she could have kept just trying to push it, which wouldn't have worked, right? She had to wait for the right timing. And so a lot of the setbacks that we have aren't setbacks. Or like if you're getting a no for something, it's not no, it's not right now, right? And so how do you learn and grow, take that information and move it forward and wait for the time is right, because a lot of it is timing. Maybe you're not ready to step into that role. Maybe the people around you aren't ready to receive it. Whatever the case is, it's usually about timing.
There's still growth somewhere to be
Yeah.
had. That's what it
Yeah.
tells me. You're just not lined up yet. And so I think that earlier you touched on this, but I have it on my notes for navigating setbacks, which is your 24-hour rule. Is that what you were
Yes.
talking about at
Yes.
the
Earlier.
beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's such a grounding tool. So I just want to make sure that they heard you talk about that rule. Can you reiterate the 24-hour rule that you have?
Yeah, so the 24-hour rule I have is, so let's say that something happens, I get bad news that's not life-changing, life-altering, right? But it's just upsetting. Listen, we can stay there, we can stay stuck, we can stay upset, but it does us no good, right? If we have 24 hours, shake it off, you can't fix it, you can't change it, it's not your problem anymore. If you can't do something to make that response different, it's not your problem. Leave it and move on. Because what happens is if we don't leave it behind, we start to dwell on it and it starts to overtake our thoughts. And then we create stories that aren't even supposed to be in our heads about something that we can't even change.
Mm.
And it just starts to derail you time and time and time again, right? And so if something happens and you can't make changes, 24 hours to dwell on it, maybe think about it, because thinking's good, reflection is good. What are some options? What are some obstacles? How can we overcome it? And if we find that it's really not for us or it's something else that doesn't concern us, 24 hours, leave it.
Yeah, I think of what's done is done.
Yeah.
Like hindsight is 2020 and we can make a pivot for the future, but we can't change what has already happened. We can only improve or let it go. And I think about also like in the growing framework, like in thinking about growth, I think about like now something's sprouting that's not
Hmm.
necessarily supposed to be there.
Hmm.
Those dead leaves that come out. And it's like if we let those stay there, they can infect the rest of the whatever's growing and thriving. It will infect it if they stay there. So we
Hmm.
have to pluck those things out at some level to make sure that we have room for the growth that's meant to be there.
Right. Yeah, it's going to become an infection, or I call an excuse,
Yeah,
right? Oh,
that is an infection for
I
sure.
can't do that because, oh, that happened
Right.
to me instead of that happened for me, right? We didn't learn from it. We didn't take that and move
Hmm.
forward. So 24 hours.
Yeah.
If you can knock it down, do it. And I get that. And again, it's not, there's exceptions, right? Things are going to happen. But for the most part, if you can't control it, don't give it more than 24 hours of your time. And that
Yeah.
includes your sleep time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
like
great.
24, like literally. So if something happened right now on this podcast, I would wait until noon the next day and then it's gone.
Yeah. I like the understanding of just sleep on it too. Like just like let it go and like make sure that you're okay. And then, the next day don't wake up with it.
Yeah, and I really try to do that, right? Unless it's something that happens at night,
Yeah.
I really try to do that because
It's probably the hardest time though, is if when the things like happen right before you go to bed or, you're closing your workday out or what have you. Like if it happens right at the end, it's like fuming
mm,
from there.
yes.
So okay, I want to highlight for the women that are listening right now who may feel like her light is dim. Okay, and I want you to speak to that. So maybe life turned her switch off for whatever reason, something with a job, something with personal life, it doesn't really matter. It's the light is dimming. So what's one step that you would share with our listener to help her find that light again?
I think the first step is acknowledge it, right? Acknowledge where you're at. Because if you don't know where you're at, how can you make a plan for where you want to go?
Hmm.
Right? So you have to acknowledge that this is hurting, this is sad, this makes me angry. I don't know why this happened for me yet. So you want to understand that. And then you want to start thinking about, okay, what strengths do I have? How can I utilize those strengths to move me forward? And I am a believer in God. I am faith, right? And so my first step is listen to him. What is he telling me? Have I
Yeah.
sat and asked? Have I thought about it? Have I even given that a minute? Right? So acknowledge where you're at, acknowledge the pain, the hurt, the things that you're going through, understand what your strengths are, and then start working through the way forward. Because if you stay there, you're going to use it as an excuse. You're going to stay stuck. And worst of all, you're not just going to stay there. You're going to start to go backwards. And I think that's what people don't understand
Right.
is that when you're stuck, you're not stuck at that space. You're actually going backwards instead of forwards. And I think what really scares people about growth when we talk about growth and moving yourself forward is that they think it has to be something big. Like, oh, I have to go to a conference or I have to go to a retreat or I have to do this or I have to do that. There's a lot of haves and shoulds in there that don't need to be there, right? Let's be honest. There's a lot of things there that don't need to be there.
Right.
Growth is really just moving yourself forward and something that you didn't know how to do before. So I like to give people examples. Pick up a book, listen to a podcast. If you've always wanted to learn how to sail, for instance, watch a video on how to sail because that is growth. That's on a personal level, but that is still growth. You're still moving forward. You're still learning. You're still diving and you're going forward, right? Going backwards is, oh, well, this happened to me and now I don't know what I'm going to do with my life because this is my plan and I don't know how to create a new one. And staying stuck in bed and not moving,
Hmm.
right? And that leads to a lot of dark places, which we don't want people to go to. Right? You've already, as she, in this example, she said your light's dim, right? So it's not off, it's dim. We're taking that dimmer switch and we're slowly moving it up,
Hmm.
right? One step at a time. The first step is acknowledging what your situation looks like.
Yeah, I love that you used the word yet. And the power of yet is something I share with my children in my home. I share with the OP community all the time, like just helping us make sure that we are understanding the power of our words.
Yes.
And instead of putting periods at the end of our sentences, when we're looking at, how is this going? How am I growing right now? What's expanding? What's feeling good in my life? That's why I like the example of dimming because a lot of times, people don't come to me saying like, I'm just done. It's really like they just feel like a lull in their
Mhm.
life or they feel really down, but not bottom down. It's like they know that they're on their way to like drained.
Mhm.
And so I'm always like, how can I, give more people support? And their words is the biggest thing. So when they're verbalizing that to me, the power of yet. I loved that you said that because it keeps it open to know that we're lifelong learners.
Mhm.
We're always growing. We're having a growth mindset, and we attract people that are wanting to cultivate
Yes.
in their life. And that means having an open heart and mind to say, this sucks right now. And
Mhm.
not but, and that, there's another wave of goodness coming. There's another, something powerful, impactful, empowering that's coming from this experience that we get to have. So, yeah, the awareness in that, and
Mhm.
that maybe we don't know exactly what it means or what it is, the purpose of it yet, but there is a purpose for it. So, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and I think you talked about burnout too. Like they're just like almost
Yes.
out. And one of the things, and I even had somebody talk to me about this just a couple weeks ago, is that they were getting promoted to a leadership position.
Mm.
And what happens, and this is where we see a lot of burnout, is because they're really good at their jobs, so they get promoted. But there's a disconnect. So now they just went from being a peer to a boss. They
Mm.
probably don't have the leadership skills they need to do that because now they're not only managing their schedule, they're managing their team, right? And now we need to add a coaching into that. So how do we coach our teams? How do
Yep.
we have those one-on-ones? What other skills do they need? Time management, right? There's a lot of things that happen when you go from peer to boss as an emerging leader that a lot of people don't talk about. And so what happens, and I've seen happen, is they were really good at their job, they get promoted, now all of a sudden they don't have all these skills that they need. And then they're going in for a review and they're like, well, I don't know what happened to you. And they're like,
I
the
got
person,
overloaded.
the person is just drained, like, and you can feel it and see it. And they're like, yeah, like a lot of times, I'm like, can I just go back to what I was doing?
It's too many hats. It's
It's
too many
because they
new
weren't taught
things.
the way to do the things,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
We make some of our best friends at work. And now all of a sudden, if your best friend and you are in the same office and now all of a sudden she's on your team, do you know how to navigate that? That's not easy. That's hard. That takes time. And people get burnt out because they're trying to do all the things. And as women, we're not just trying to do all the things at work. Let's be
Hmm.
clear.
Right.
We're doing all the things at home. We're doing all the things with our friends. We're doing all the things with our family, right? We are, women are inherently, I think, yes, women, right? We don't want to say no. And because we're not taught how to navigate all of those challenges, we go into burnout pretty quick.
Yeah, I think about it as yes, girls and no women. Right? Yes, girls, as in yes, we're pleasing everybody and yes, we'll do all the things, but I'm a no woman.
I
I
like
will
that.
I will say no to the things that are not in alignment with where I'm growing to because it's not serving the people either, right? That's
Hmm.
something that I've come to learn about being an entrepreneur and having, opportunities come to me that they sound great for someone doesn't mean that it's for me.
Yes.
So being able to powerfully and easily practice the one sentence word no and becoming a woman that says no with confidence because everything is just because it came to you does not mean it's for you.
Oh, 100%. And I think I want to add to that.
Yeah.
So we say yes to things because they fit for that moment in time.
Mm.
But every year I reflect and recalibrate on what I'm doing, what programs I'm in, what communities I'm in. If I'm in volunteer organizations, what does that look like? And I'm looking at all of it from am I still serving them to the best of my ability? And are they still serving me?
Hmm.
Because in every relationship, I don't care what it is, it's a two-way street,
Yes.
right? And so as servant leaders, if we're not giving all and receiving, our tank is going to drain.
Hmm.
So I encourage everybody to take a look, especially as we're wrapping up this year, what's serving you and what are you not serving? Because if you're not serving well enough, leave it. Let somebody else who's willing to step into that space where it's their season to take over.
Yep, absolutely. That's right. Because then it's not serving you as someone that's here to impact. If we can't impact, then that's where the drain comes from. I've learned that about
Mhm.
myself too. If it doesn't feel like a full body yes, then it's a hell no, you
Yes.
know?
The drain. That's where you get your drain.
Yeah, or it has a leak in it. And
Hmm.
sometimes that's challenging when we start things and we feel like we can't stop them. Can't is a swear word in my house
Yes.
because we can't. It's a choice. We get to
Yes.
choose the things that feel good, but also it doesn't always feel good, right? There is commitment that we push through to know that there's a real purpose for the challenges in our life.
Hmm.
So there's a give and a take on that, but really just what can we choose that's in alignment with where we're growing and where we're continuing to move to that, is an aligned yes.
Yes.
So that when it's out of alignment, we can also trust that and feel that and
Mm-hmm.
know that it's a no, an no,
Yes.
period.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so we're wrapping up here, and I love to like wrap up with future vision. And one of the questions on my application always is asking about like a 5-year vision and just like the future of what's coming and who you're becoming. So, Michelle, you had mentioned becoming a household name, empowering people everywhere to turn their light switch back on. So, paint us a picture. Tell us more about that Michelle. What does she embody? And how does she lead with being a household name? I want to know more about that.
Well, she leads with courage,
Mm.
right? Because I already talked about my vulnerability with being visible,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's going to take courage. To make that happen, not if that'll happen, but to make that happen, that's going to take courage on my end.
And you're already doing that. You're already doing it. She's here. You spoke to 400 women. You keep showing up even after surgeries. Like that is courageous every step of the way. So continuing to do that for
And
sure.
asking for help when help is needed is super courageous for me.
Yeah.
But really, it's okay. Well, how do I start? What does that process look like for me, right? So I am leveraging my strengths, right? I am a learner. I have responsibility, focus, achiever, competition, right? And competition can be a naughty C word, but I compete with myself. Where was I last year to this year, right? So I've started, I'm not kidding. Okay, so sidebar real quick.
Yeah.
Growing up, my brother, the middle one, is 18 months older than me.
Okay.
And we were very competitive.
Yeah.
To the point where I remember one day we were sitting in the living room and we're like trying to see who was stronger. And so we had our mother, we were standing like this with our arms out, stack encyclopedias. For those of you who don't know what that
Oh
is,
my
just Google it
gosh.
and see who could last the longest. And she would continue to stack them until one of us broke.
Wow.
So, okay, so I've had to learn how to be competitive with myself instead of others because that can
Yeah.
be dangerous,
Yeah.
right? But really being courageous, really stepping out, and I'm learning,
Hmm.
right? So I have a speaking coach that I work with,
Yep.
right? I was on a call with her before I came here today, and she's like, "Yeah, you need to miss a call to go speak. Perfect, right? Like that's an excusable reason to miss, right?"
Yeah.
So, getting that assistance, getting that help, moving forward, understanding, really sharing my story and sharing the imperfections in it too. I
Hmm.
think in the beginning when I started all of this, I really felt like I had to show up as perfect,
Hmm.
right? And it was blacks and grays, and it wasn't really, maroons and reds, and it was very much like business professional and nothing less. And I found that I just really wasn't who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be known for. And so there's a lot of reflection and recalibrating going on in there and being open to new ideas, right? So I'm taking all the information, I'm processing it, I'm moving forward step by step by step because it is a process. And every year I come up with 3 goals,
Hmm.
right? And so those 3 goals makes it easier for me to say yes or no, right? So my goals for next year, what are those? Okay, does that align with my goal? Yes or no? Okay, if it's a no, it's a no, right? Because we do, and as we continue to grow and become more visible and more public and more known, all things that my goal is so I can help more people,
Yeah.
I have to be really stronger in my goals and in my no's. And so that vision really looks like, driving to Minnesota once a month for the Speakers Academy through NSA Minnesota, right? Because I'm learning from people who are doing it.
Hmm.
I'm learning from people who have walked that path, right? Because I could go and try to reinvent the wheel, but why should I?
Right.
Why should you?
Mm-hmm.
This is why we hire people to help us through the things that we don't know how to navigate on our own.
Yep. Get those mentors, get those experts,
Yeah.
find the people that have done it, that have experienced it. They've already spent all the money to do it too. Like, save yourself the time.
Right.
The time.
Be more efficient. Yes.
Yeah. And so what I want to bring full circle is that um you talked about how um it was programmed in you so early on, like in the beginning of your life to like conform and like stay blending in. And right, isn't that the truth about what you just said about blacks and whites and being like everybody else instead of Michelle, instead of
Yeah.
wearing your branding colors, instead of standing out as who she is
Hmm.
more than who other people tell her who she is or who she's supposed to be as a coach, as a leader, as a speaker. And that's another great point to just like when you're looking for people to collaborate with and work with or hire, making sure that you do have alignment and that you're still
Hmm.
trusting yourself to take what they say and bring it to yourself to say,
Hmm.
is this me? Is this mine? Is this, translating for me, not just because my mentor told me
Hmm.
to, because I've had that experience where I used to just conform to that too, thinking they know
Sure.
better than me. And they've done there, they've done that, and the discernment. And that goes
Hmm.
back to your very first thing, listening to your higher power, listening to God, sitting with him to say, like, what is this? So taking that pause is what I've been hearing too in this whole conversation with you today is just like the power in that pause to just like not just ask people in our life for help,
Hmm.
but asking God and having our faith in trusting our process and what's about to happen to say,
Hmm.
this is me. I'm going to take that advice that I learn as a speaker or that I learn as, a coach, and I'm going to implement that. That feels an alignment
Yeah.
for me. So there's so much power in trusting our own intuition in those scenarios too that I've learned personally. But then there was one other thing. You rattled off some really great characteristics and strengths. How does anyone know where would they go or what would they do to start understanding their own strengths? Because we've talked about that.
Yes. So it's included in my program if you do
Yes.
that. However, you can also go out to Clifton Strengths and they have a top 5 or a top 34 that you can go out there. You can take a test. It doesn't take very long. Purchase it and then work through that information on your own. You can do it with coaches. But I recommend everybody know their top 5. Again, I talked about mine, right? Learner, achiever, focus, responsibility, and competition. Not necessarily in that order. Right. But it's also at the same time
Yeah.
knowing your values. What are your values?
Yes.
And I can tell you faith, health, family, wealth, integrity. I have 10 things that I live by that I know off the top of my head that I can work towards. And that also helps with the yes and the no's.
Hmm.
That also helps me stay true to me.
Yeah.
Because without that, if you don't know who you are or what you stand for, I mean, you'll fall for anything, right?
That's right. That's right. Unless you're very conscious and front of mind for
Right.
that. And I want to say something about the so is the Clifton, is that your favorite? Like one to
I use that and and so I'm also DISC certified,
yeah.
which is behavior analysis. So I use those together
Yeah.
to help us learn how to move forward and communicate and work within our strengths all at the same time.
Yeah. And I've taken and I'll say like because I did this program with Michelle. And so I know that she uses those. And I love the Clifton one as well. But here's a fun fact. I did the Clifton Strengths Finder 3 years ago before
Hmm.
I joined Michelle's program. And she was like, well, I have this. And at first I said, well, I don't need to take it again because it was, just 3 years ago. And then I think I heard you say something about, if you have this big change or this leadership position, and it's like, oh, I had a lot of leadership positions shift in my life in
Hmm.
3 years. And I was like, I want to take it again, Michelle. And I took it again, and it was only one. There was only one that stayed in my top five. The rest totally changed. And to me, it told this whole story about the journey that I was personally on in my growth that you helped bring to the table and like
Hmm.
show me more of that. So yeah, I'm still super grateful for that too. Just having the opportunity to really dive in and have someone, kind of translate back like, oh, and Michelle and I have been in some masterminds together outside of her program or my program. Michelle's been in my community as well.
Hmm.
So like we've been around each other in different ways. So to have someone speak that back to you is very powerful. So, again, make sure that you get connected with Michelle. The information will be in here for you to have a call with Michelle, check out these assessments and her program and her coaching. And yeah, Michelle, this has been such a gift to be able to share your framework and your
Yeah.
experiences. So, is there anything that you would like to wrap up the podcast with to share with the audience before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say for any assessment, like you
Yeah.
said, if you're undergoing any sort of growth and changes like that, it's always a good idea if you want to retake them. And with any assessment, I like to tell you that you're not stuck in a box.
Mm.
Like, don't let that define who you are. Like if you're thinking disc personalities, I'm an SI, which is an advisor. But that doesn't mean that in the right moment I can't be something different.
Right.
Right? We don't have to put ourselves in a box and stay there. We can outgrow our box. We can move forward. We can move past it.
Mm.
So just remember, there's always a way forward. You just have to acknowledge where you are, figure out where you want to go, and light the path.
Mm. I love it. All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
And
you.
make sure that you share this with a friend. If this has inspired you, it has gave you some hope and inspiration, then we want to hear from you. And I'm Becky Plautz. This is the Choose on Purpose podcast. Love yourself, live fearlessly, and do all things with purpose. We'll see you next time.